Hey everyone, I hope you are all doing great and ready to dive into some exciting new content today. If you are serious about building secure and scalable web applications, you are in the right place. Whether you are a seasoned developer or just getting started, every little step towards better security makes a big difference. In today's video, we are diving into an essential feature of any secure web application, that is sending email confirmation to newly registered users using JWT, that's a JSON Web Token, and ASP.NET Core Identity. Just imagine this: a user signs up for your app, but before they can access sensitive data or start using the service, they need to confirm that their email is valid. This simple step not only ensures the authenticity of your users, but it also helps you prevent spam account and unauthorized access. Plus, it creates an extra layer of security by confirming the user's identity right from the get-go. So in this video, I will guide you through setting up email confirmation in your .NET 8 Web API, from configuring identity to generating JWT tokens and sending confirmation email. This feature is crucial in modern applications that need to verify user account before granting access to core functionalities in your system. Let's look at 3 ways why email confirmation is so important that you cannot miss it in your application. First is cybersecurity. When users verify their email addresses, you ensure that they own the account they are using to sign up. This can prevent common security threats such as bots or attackers creating fake accounts. Secondly, email confirmation improves user engagement and trust. Verified users are more likely to trust your platform, knowing that their data is safe. It also helps in keeping your user database clean and accurate. You are ensuring that the people who sign up are real and actively engaging with your service. So now that we have the idea of email confirmation, let's go ahead and see how we can include it in our project. So launch of Visual Studio and let's create a project which is going to be definitely Web API. So click on Create New Project. ASP.NET Core Web API, give it a name, and I'll click on Next to create a project. So now that we have our project created, we need some packages in order to handle this. So let's go and install these packages. We need to install MailKit, we need to install JWT Bearer, Entity Framework Core, Identity UI, SQLite, and Tools. I already have the package references of these packages, so I need not to install them again. All that I'm going to do here is to restore these packages. So I'll just right click on this project, then I'll unload it. After I unload the project, then I'm going to paste in this and reload project with dependencies. So these are the packages that you need. Install this MailKit, JWT Bearer, EF-Call, Identity UI, SQLite, and now Tools. You can decide to use an SQL server. It's still going to work. So choose a database and put it in there. So now that we have the packages being pasted in here, let's go and reload project with dependencies to get these packages restored. Alright, so we can go ahead and rebuild this project to make sure everything is intact. So now that we have this built successfully, let's go to the program file and add our JWT service and also identity service. So before our app build, we need to create the DB set first, isn't it? So let's create a DB context in the data folder. Maybe say in the project, right click on it, let's add a folder, and I'm going to name this as data. So from there, let's create a DB context class. So let's class, and I'm going to make it as app DB context. Now this should inherit from identity DB context. So we're going to create constructor of this. So that is all we need to do here. Let's save it. Let's go to our program file. Let's go and register our connection in there. That's a database connection. So that is builder.services.add db context and appdb context. And in here, we need to specify database connection. Since we're going to have an option, so options maps to this options dot, and I'm going to use SQLite. I can go ahead and I'll specify the data source straight in here. So auth.db, that is my database. So aside from this, let's go and add migration. So you make sure it is built. Now add migration. Update database. So that is done. Let's go and add our services. So add DWT service. So we need to specify 3 options here: default authentication scheme, and all of them are going to match with JWT bearer default authentication scheme. And then the last one that we need, it is a default challenge scheme, which is same. Now let's add JWT bearer, which also takes in options. Now here we need to have option.save token. Let's set this to true. So from that, let's specify our token validation parameters. Now in that, we need to specify, so we can clear this. So let's say validate audience. Let's set this to false for demo purpose. So we want to set all this to false. Then by in the production, we need to validate the audience and maybe the issuer. So issuer, set this to false. So we need to have an issuer sign-in key. We'll specify that soon. Then we need validate lifetime. Let's also false this. And maybe we need to have required expiration time. Set this to false. Okay. Let's only validate issuer sign-in key. Okay, So now when we come here, we want to get our key. So maybe let's have as byte. You say key, then this equal to, let's have our encoding dot, let's use an ASCII. Encoding is coming from system.test, so we can use ASCII.getByte, and let's specify the random characters here. Then we pick our key. So in here we're going to say continue symmetrical security, and then specify the key. Okay, so we are done adding our JWT authentication. Let's go and add identity. So builder.services.add, let's use default identity, which takes in identity user. Then with identity user, we need to specify options as well. Now with this option, you want to have option.require email confirmation, but it should be signed in first. Require email confirmation. Set this to true. That is what we want to achieve today. Now, in order for us to get the token in the form of integer, let's also add options.tokens, then .email confirmation token provider, set it to token options dot, let's use default email provider. So this will give us the number integer. If you don't provide this, you're going to have string. We want to have an integer number, so we can copy and paste it. Okay, now after this, we want to add entity framework core. Let's specify our DB context. So app DB context, and that is all we need to do. Okay. Now this should be here. I believe you've done that, isn't it? Alright, so that is all that we need to do. Let's go and create our controller to handle the creation, the confirmation, and our sending of the email. I've made a dedicated video on how you can send email. Okay, so we're going to use that simple code, simple method to handle the email sending. So let's edit this. And we're going to change this to authentication or accounts or whatever name that you feel you want to give it to this. You can go ahead and undo that. So I'm going to remove all this and let's start. So the first thing I'm going to start here is let's inject our user manager. So user manager, which is identity user. We have identity user, then we say this is user manager. So this is what we want. Now let's create a first method, which is going to be HTTP post, and here we're going to say it is register. We want to accept some parameters such as email and also accept password. So we need these two parameters. Let's have a public async task, which takes in generic of iAction results. And now we say here that register string email as a parameter, and now string password. Okay, so we have this. Let's have a separate method down here to get a user. So this should be private async task, which returns identity user. You know, at time you need to follow the principle of dry, do not repeat yourself. So multiple methods, or a method which you want to be using multiple times should be extracted in a single file, a single method. So you can be calling it over and over again, which takes in the email, and that is exactly what we are doing here. So here we are saying that return await, that is user manager dot find user by email, and I'm passing this email here. It could be that this could be null, isn't it? So let's make this as nullable. Now let's grab this, and into our method that we have, let's have our user is equal to, we have an await get user passing this email. So when this comes in and we are saying that if user is not equal to null, then we want to return bad request. We don't want to give a lot of information in account, because you know this is the delicate area. So make sure you keep things secret. Do not expose things to before you get hacked, right? So let's have, in case it's null, then let's say await user manager dot create async, specify new identity user, and now in that there are some things that you need to specify. That is, username is the first thing, is a must. Passing as the email, we have email, that is email. Then we have password hash, that is password. And aside from that, you need to specify password too. Now let's close it. So we're going to say if this result dot succeeded. So in case it isn't, we don't want to give any information. All that we want to do here is return store bad request. So the user might not know what is happening. Okay, you don't want to give any information because you don't know the person who is creating the account. It could be good, it could be bad. So keep things secret. Now let's have our, in case it is successful, then we want to grab this user is equal to await get user, then still passing the email. So after we have this email, what are we going to do? We want to have the email code. So this is the code. I want to say that await email, not the email, this is user manager dot generate email confirmation token, which takes in this user. So passing the user. This user could be null, so make sure you check it out. Now once you have this, all that we're going to do here is let's create send email, which is going to return string from our method that is send email method. In the let's pass in this user email and on the email code. So user dot email and also this email code. So that is a token. You want to send this to the current user's email address to verify. So within this, we need to create a method here. So control period, click on generate a method known as send email. We have it in here, and let's return the results. So return, okay, since it's an action result, the result that is coming from the email send kindly return to the user. Now when we come to the email section, what are we going to be doing here? We have the package already installed, so let's have our string builder. I have this created at hand. I prepared this at hand, so I'm going to copy this with just an HTML format we're going to be using to send the email. So I have all this. It's a HTML body. I can see it's an HTML that I'm sending. So I just copy this and I'll paste this the code that you want. And here it is an email. So dear, you have an email. Thank you for your registration. To verify your email, copy this code and I'll paste it, right? So follow the verification code or just copy and paste it. Please enter this code in your website to complete registration. Then whatever. Best regard, Netcode-Hub. Alright, so once we have this generated, we need to have our string. So let's say this is string. So message is equal to email message dot to string. Convert this to string. And the next thing that we're going to do here is let's create our email. So email is equal to new my message. Now this message is coming from MIME-kit. So let's make sure we have that. Aside from that, we need to prepare send to and now from, right? So we're going to say this email dot to dot add. So whom are we sending to? we're going to specify the name in there, but before that we need to use mailbox. So mailbox address dot pass, then we're going to specify it here. Let's make a duplicate. Now instead of to, we're going to say from, the same thing. Let's specify the subject. So we have an email dot subject, and this equal to email confirmation. And let's specify the body. So email dot, we're gonna have the body. Now this body we're gonna say is equal to new text part. Then within that we're gonna have our text format. So text formats, and we want to make it as HTML since we have created an HTML. And in that, let's specify the text. The text equal to this message. You close that. So now that we have this, let's create our using. So var SMTP is equal to new SMTP client. We are using MailKit. Then here you're gonna say SMTP dot authenticate. Now with authenticate, we want to specify the username and the password. So you have username, then we have password. Okay. Then before that, we need to connect it. So SMTP dot connect. And now with this connect, we need the host, and we need the ports, and also we need secure socket option dot start TTLS, because we're going to be using Ether. That's a fake email account, and that is a TTLS. It's a TLS, so we need to use that. Then after we authenticate this, what are we going to do? We want to say SMTP dot send. So let's send this email. Now after sending this email, we want to disconnect. So SMTP dot disconnect. Then let's pass through to disconnect. Then after that, let's return a string message. So thank you for your registration. Kindly check your email for confirmation code. Alright, so now this is going to send this email, okay, to the person's email address when you specify this in here. Now once you have the next thing we're going to do here is when the person passes in the token from the email, what do you want to do? Let's go and verify that. So this is going to be HTTP post, and here we're going to say confirmation. So confirmation. Now with this, it's going to accept the email address of the user and also the token. Now this token, or this is the code. This code should be integer. Since we know we are sending an integer, we want to make sure it is that. Okay. Now let's create a method to handle this. So this should be public async task of iAction result, and here we say confirmation, which takes in the email, and also it takes in this code. So we can check if the string dot is null or empty, if the email is empty, or this code is less than or equal to 0, then we want to return bad request. And now with this, we're going to say invalid code provided. Now in case all is set, what we're going to do here is let's get the user. So user is equal to, we're going to have an await. We have a method already, get users. Let's specify the email. Now when we have this email, so if this user is null, then you want to return bad request. So we're gonna say invalid identity provided. So we can pass in something to maybe meaningful text, but in case it is not null, then we have our var result. There's going to be a boolean, so let's have boolean is, let's say, confirm email is equal to, I think here it shouldn't be boolean, so let's make it as var result. And we are saying that await. Now user manager dot confirm email async. Then let's specify the username and now the code. So that is the email and the code. Now here we're going to have a response of success. So this is our user, and then this is the code. Okay, this is the code coming in, and that is what we have. It's an integer, but you need to convert this to toString. Then we can say that if result dot succeeded, what you want to do, you can also return same bad request. Let's space this. So in case this is false, but in case this is true, then what do you want to do? So we can just return okay, email proceeded, or let's say, so email confirmed successfully, so you can proceed to login. That is when the email is confirmed. And let's also, so when you get to login, what are we going to do? Let's have our HTTP post. Now this post, here is going to be login, which takes in same email, takes in password, isn't it? Now here going to be public async task. It's a task of I action result, and in here we're going to say login, which takes in string, not username, email, and string password. Now within this, we want to check, so maybe we can check if string that is null. You're talking about the email, same thing, string that is null, talking about the password, then return bad request. Now in case it isn't, then you want to check, so that's where bool is email confirmed. So let's check if the email is confirmed. So user manager dot is email confirmed. We specify the user, but since you're not having the user here, so we can grab the user at get user, passing this email. So you can even check here, in case this user is null, then return bad request or return any action, but for now we can skip that. So we're going to check if false, so we're going to say if is email confirmed. If this is false, then return bad request. So you need to confirm email before logging in. You see? So that is what you want to do. But in case it is true, what are you going to do? then maybe you want to generate token. So here, if everything is set, then what are you going to do here is to generate the token. So let's return OK. Now with this OK, let's specify new. Then we're going to say login successful, and also we need a method generate token. Let's pass in this user. Now let's go and create this method. So generate method known as a generate token, which takes an identity user. And in here, what are we going to do? We're going to now generate a token. So we have our byte, and that's going to be our key. Let's equal to, we have our encoding. So encoding.ascii.getByte, and here let's go ahead and grab our byte. So you can put this in the app settings, so you don't have to repeat this. And this key must be in a secret place. Don't just expose it as I'm doing. So we get byte from this. After getting this byte, what are we doing? We want to have our security key, which is equal to new symmetrical security key, and I'll specify the key that we have created in the byte form. Now the next thing is, let's create our credential from the key. So credentials equal to new symmetrical credential, that is coming here. I'm not finding mine. Do you see yours? So no symmetrical, that is sign in credential, right? So sign in credential, and here you need to specify the security key, in where we omitted, I think, E. Then aside from the key, we need security algorithm .hmark256. Let's have our claims. Claims is this equal to new array. Let's add new claim, just coming from system.claim. In here we can specify JWT registered claim names. So registered claim names, which is coming from tokens. Then we want to specify the sub, and here we want to say user.id. Let's make a duplicate, and instead of this ID, we specify the email, and I will say that this is user.email. Let's make sure this is null, and user to same. After we have this, let's go ahead and generate our token. So this is our token. We have equal to new JWT security token, and now in that we need the issuer as null. So let's specify we need our audience as null. We need our claims as claims that we have in here. Then we need our expiry date as null, since we did not activate that. Then we need our signing credential as credential that we created. Okay. So in order for us to read it well, this could be an issuer. So this issuer, we have our audience, Then we have our claims. We have our expiry. Then we have our credential in here. So credential. So that is sign-in credentials. We have them. Okay. So let's go and create a method. Now this method, we're going to protect it. So, as soon as you leave it like this, it is unprotected. So anybody can have access to this. So let's return new JWT security token handler dot. Then we can write token. And I'll pass in this token. Aside from that, let's go down here. Then this is HTTP get. And now with this get, we're saying this endpoint is protected. So whilst it is protected, let's have a public which returns string. Then we're going to say that get message. And now this get message, you want to say that this message is coming from protected endpoint. Okay, but we're not going to leave this alone. We're going to be adding authorized attribute. So authorized, whereby specify the scheme. So we have our scheme. That is our scheme. Alright, so before we go, we want to get a fake email account. So pull your browser and now let's access ethereal.email. Now this will give us fake email. Click on create email account. Now let's go and grab this, our fake email for testing. Let's go to our service, and where we have our email. So this is our to and from. So sending email, we need to authenticate this. So pass in your name, the same email. Let's go and grab the password and let's paste the password. Okay, now we need the SMTP or the host. So we can get the host from here. That is smtp.ethereal.email, which running on TLS or 587 as the port. And that is it. So let's build this. Let's make sure we have our message opened. For now, we have no message as email, subject as email confirmation. Let's see if this is done building. We're going to run it and check it out. So this succeeded. Let's run this. So our endpoints are ready. Now let's go and register. So we try this, passing an email, and so this is admin at maybe admin.com. Now let's specify the password, admin at 123. Let's click on execute. Now this is going to send an email for confirmation. So let's wait and see. I think we have a null issue, and I think you solved that. Let's do it again. So this username has been created, it has been saved in here. We did not have a method to roll back in case it's an issue. So maybe we can try and fix that. In case it couldn't, then you can roll back and delete the current user who got registered. But for now, we're going to use another email to handle that. Alright, so it is ready and loading. Now that this is set, click on try this out. So we cannot be using this let's use admin at mail.com. Then the password here is admin@123. Click on execute. And let's wait and check it out. So that is done. Let's check the reference here. So thank you for your registration. Kindly check your email for confirmation code. Right. Now let's see if we have it. Now click on message again. Oh yeah, we have it. Email confirmation. Click on it. And there's a message. Thank you for your registration with us. Please verify your email address. Use the following verification code. Right. So all that we need here is to copy this code. Now let's go back to our endpoint. This is our endpoint. Now before this, let's try to log in and check it out. We haven't verified, so let's try to log in. We are using the same email, admin@mail. So admin@mail.com and admin@123. Now click on execute. We try to log in once you haven't registered. Now you can see you need to confirm your email before logging in. Logins in. Well, we forgot to make it G, right? Logging in. So let's go and verify this. So confirm, pass in your email, admin@mail.com. Now paste in the code. Click on execute. Now email confirmed. Let's go and log in. We haven't logged in yet. Let's try to execute this method, which is protected. We must have 401. Execute this 401. Let's go and log in. So execute this, and here we have our token. So grab this token from here, and now let's open Postman so we can add this to the header. I have it open already. So that is this one. Now from this, it's going to be get. So let me go to header and add authorization. Let me remove this one. Then add bearer. And now paste this. Okay. Let's go to the endpoint, which gave us 401. Let's grab this. Let's go to the Postman. Let's paste it. So I'm going to deactivate this. Make a call. We must have 401. 401. Now let's activate the header. Click on send. And we must have the content. We still have 401, isn't it? Alright, so let's try this again. Account protected, 401. Although we have this at the header, we're still getting 401. Let's find out and see. When we check our method in here, we have this get, which takes in is an authorized. And as soon as you're authorized, you want to get this. Okay. So let's check here too. I believe you know what is causing the issue. This must be authorization. And I click on send, and it should receive a response from the API, from that endpoint. This message is coming from protected endpoint. We are diving into a super important feature that every secured application needs, which is password reset functionality. We have all been there, right? Forgetting passwords, resetting them, or even worse, seeing our apps with insecure password recovery systems. Well, I got you covered. Imagine this. You are running on maybe your nice, awesome application for a large user base. Suddenly, some of your users realize that they cannot log in, all because of forgotten password. Without a password reset feature, they are stuck, frustrated, and might even considering abandoning your platform altogether. And for you as the developer, that's a nightmare. You don't want that to happen. That is the reason why password reset is crucial. And not just to make sure users can get back into their account, but also to do it securely. So in today's video, we are going to walk through how we can implement password reset in .NET 8 Web API using ASP.NET Identity and JWT, that is JSON Web Token. If you have been following my content, you know we have already covered things like email confirmation, which is key to verifying your users. Now we are taking it up a notch and adding another layer of security and user experience. So the question that I have for you is, why exactly is password reset such an essential feature? Well, first of all, it's about user trust. People need to know they can recover access to their account without needing to jump through hoops. But more than that, we are dealing with sensitive user data, that is password. So the process has to be secured, token-based, and resilient against attackers or attacks like phishing or brute force. And identity has a nice inbuilt feature for us, and that is what we're going to integrate. So let's jump into our Visual Studio and now let's start this magic. So create a project and add your web API. Give it any name that you want, and that is what I'm going to be doing. So I have my project name as demo password reset with identity. Well, I could add the API. Never mind. So choose project location, and here it has a folder known as a project in my C drive. That is where I'm going to keep this. So click on next, and last part here you have to click on create to get your project created. It's quite simple steps. After you have this project created, there are some packages that's what we're going to be using, and we need to install these. I have these package references already, so I need not to go in and install it again. All that I can do is to go up and restore these packages. So this is what I'm going to be doing. Just go to Solution Explorer. In case you're not having these packages, I think in my previous video we installed same packages. In case you have them, you can just go there and grab the packages and come here and restore them. So I'm going to right click on my project and I'll go to Unload Project. Now after this, I'll just grab my packages. If you don't have them, well, you can also get them installed. You know where to install them, isn't it? If you don't know, let me know and I'll show you where you can install these packages. So you need MailKit for sending maybe a reset link to the person's email. We have JWT Bearer for authentication. We have EF Core, and we have the Identity UI, which will give us access to the identity, and also we have SQLite, that is the database management that we're going to be using. We have tools in order to help us or assist us perform migration. These are the packages that we need, so make sure you get them like this. And after that, I'll just right click on this and then go to Reload Project with dependencies to get these packages restored nicely. Very simple steps, right? Great. And after I'm done, I like building project to see any error or early errors to correct them before they escalate. Yeah, so try to rebuild project often to see or to skip future errors. So I have it succeeded, so it means nothing wrong with my project. I can close this, go to solution, and in here we can start doing something else here. So with the use of identity, we need to create a DB context. Then we're going to inherit from the default identity DB context class found in the package that we installed. So we are not going to perform or specify any model. Let's do that. So I'm going to click on this and add a folder. For organization purpose, I'll give it a name as data. Then I'll right click and add a class to this, so you can also do same. So app.db context, that is my class name. Now with this context, we need to inherit from identity DB context. Now here we need to pass in identity user. You can customize this if you want, but we want to use the default one. So this is coming from, well, let's wait. That is a using statement that you need to add. We need to create constructor for this, and I'm passing this through the options. So I have this copied already. If you watch me, I just have to go in there and I'll paste it. Now once I'm done, we go back to our program and register the database connection. This is quite simple steps. Okay, so in here I'm going to make it as builder.services, so .add db context, and here I'm going to use the class that we created as app.db context. In that, you need to specify an option to get your connection string, but since I'm going to use data SQLite, I'm going to specify this straight ahead in here, and I'm going to name it as auth.db. That is for the SQLite. Okay, so once I have this, well, we are not done. I think we skip. Let's grab this. It should be builder. No, there should be an option first, so we can specify an SQLite, isn't it? So options, then you have options.use SQLite, and that is where we pass in this. It's quite simple. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is to add identity and authentication, that's the JWT services. Okay, so here let's have builder.services add authentication. So add authentication, and now this we need an option. So we're gonna say that this options dot, we have to set up default scheme, and this is going to be JWT bearer default scheme dot authentication scheme. So let's duplicate this 3 times because we need this 3 times. All right, so here we're going to say it is default scheme. So default scheme, and we need default challenge scheme. So default challenge scheme, that is this one. Okay, after that we need to, after we are done specifying our scheme, we need to add our JWT bearer itself, and in here it also needs an options. Don't forget that. So no, yes, so this options, we're going to say that since we're going to be working with password, you want to make sure we have every little thing that or settings that comprise of password. Okay, so we add that and we add those stuffs as well. But first of all, let's get our key. So I'm going to have our byte, and this is our key, or what we can specify this straight ahead in this, and we go. So we're going to say this options.save token, set this to true, and after that we're going to have another option. Before options, let's have our validate. I think options dot token validation parameters is equal to new. Then we need to specify that, and that is where we need our validate properties here. So let's say you have validate audience. Let's set this to false. Let's validate issuer, set this to false. Validate lifetime, set this to false. Then required expiration time, set this to false. Okay, so now that we have this, we need to have validate issuer sign-in key. For that one, you want to set this to true, and then we need to have our issuer sign-in key. Now this issuer sign-in key is equal to new symmetrical. We have it in the symmetrical security key, and now with this key we need to specify our encoding. So we can also be using UTF-8 or ASCII. So let's have UTF-8 dot get byte, and now with this byte you need to specify your special key. This is mine in here. That is what you're going to be using for your authentication. So it must be unique and safe. All right, so after you are done with this, we have authentication systems put in place. Now let's go terminate this before you move on. Let's go and add the identity service. So we have our builder.services, then we need to add default So default identity, and now passing identity user. Since you're using the default one, we need an option. So as for this, specify same options. Now with this option, we're going to say that option.password, we want to concentrate on password dot required digits. So we have required digits, set this to true. Aside from that, you want to have options.password.required non-alphanumeric. Yes, set this to true. So that is the formation of the password. Default, it has all this, but well, if you want to make sure of it, then it's better you also repeat the same thing. So we have default.password. We have required, and here required length. So maybe our unique characters. So special characters here defaultly is accepting 1, but we can make it 2. Okay, so when you add 2, it's okay. We can make it 2 in here, or you can make it more than that. That's the unique characters. But here the minimum should be 2, or minimum should be, we can make it 1. You can make it at 1 or 2. All right, so the next thing that we need to do here is we need to specify our options again. So for our unique characters, we need to specify, let's terminate this well, it is not comma. We have our options.password. Then we can add required lowercase. You see them here, uppercase, set this to true, and now do same for lowercase. Password.lowercase. So set this to true. So now we have our password formation implemented nicely. Great. As we are done with this, we need to add entity framework store. Let's specify our DB context. So app DB context, and we are good to go. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do here is, after we are done with these services, let's go and integrate this in our controller. For now, I'm not creating a class for simplicity's sake. Okay, so I'm not creating a service to be called. I want to do everything in the controller. So when you have the understanding, you can go in and extract them with an interface implementation, register them, and at the end inject it here and use it. So you can be doing that in another service as well. Okay, so let me remove all default stuff, and let's go and actually rename this controller. So let's make it as account. And in here we need to inject our user manager. So let's go and inject a user manager in the constructor using the primary one. So user manager. Now with this user manager, it takes in identity user, give it a name as user manager. Okay, so let's first handle registration. So before, we need to create an account, isn't it? So let's handle that. And this should be an endpoint of post, isn't it? That's for the HTTP verb. So we have HTTP post, and now with this, that is this one. You see that? So this is register. And register registration, we need email and password. That is what we need. We are not actually implementing confirm password and etc. You can add that. So if you have email and password, we take in a public, that is an async task. Let's have action result. Now we say register. We specify the payload as password. So we need our email first, then we have the password. Okay, so we can go in there and extract a simple method which will be calling often. So async task, this is going to be identity user, and I will say get user, takes in the user's email, and now here we are saying that await user manager dot find by email, and I'll specify this email. We can make this as nullable. Then the next thing that we're going to do here is, let's say var user is equal to, let's get the user from here. Maybe you can get the user, or since it's a new one, we are not actually implementing validations here. Okay, we want to focus on password reset to make this video simple and clear. So let's skip all validations, and maybe another time we will talk about how to validate. In case you don't know that, I'll also teach you that soon, so don't worry. We have our results is equal to await. So we have a user manager dot create async, and here we need to specify new identity user. And now there are some few properties that we need. There are a lot, but let's make this one. We have email is equal to email, and now we have the password hash that is equal to this password. That is what we need. Aside from that, let's come here and specify the password which will be needed for this. Okay, now after this is going to get created, so after that you want to return, and now here we are returning okay with this result. So in case it is successful, we're going to see that. In case it isn't, we're also going to see that. Now let's talk about how to reset. Maybe before reset we can log in. What do you think? Let's log in first and check that one out. So let's have our same HTTP post, and now here we're going to say this is login. Now login, we also need to specify these parameters. Okay, you can make them as a parameter or query strings. So here we're going to be using parameters of email, then password, because that is what we also need. So you can see when you check the parameters that we need for the registration and login, they are the same. You know, normally they are the same, just that with the registration you need to add confirm password when you're consuming it in the UI, a client like Blazor, React, or any other UI framework. But here, since we are going to handle that everything in the controller or maybe in the Swagger, we can skip that. So let's have our public, and there's an async task action results, and I will say login, which takes in the email and also what again, password, isn't it? So when we have this, we're gonna say that this user, or even for us to check it straight, yeah, we can have a user equal to this, or we can first check from here. So let's check with the password sync. So let's say check password. So this password is equal to, we have an await, then we have a user manager dot we can have check password. So you can see we have check password, and now here we need user, isn't it? So we're gonna say await, then get user, and I'll specify the email which gives us the user, and I'll add this password. So we're gonna check in here. Let's make sure this is null, because it's possible of returning null. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and I'll say that if this check password, meaning if this is true, it means the password, this user exists, isn't it? Then what do you want to do? We want to just go in there and I'll return. Let's return okay. Now with this okay, unstructured one, let's pass it in. So as an array. Now with this, we're going to say maybe successful logged in. Okay, now once you are logged in, what do you want to do again? We want to generate the token. So generate token, and now with this generate token, you want to pass in this user. Since we are not having this user, you can create a variable to handle that, or we can also call the method again. So get user, and let's pass in same email. Since we have it already, we can get that. Now let's go and generate this method. So control period, we can generate this method and pass in this identity user in here. All right, so that is when this is true, but in case it isn't, then what can you do? You can have your else, and return such as bad request or any other return action return. You can do that. So you can see we are having our login implemented. Now we're going to generate a token over here. So in order to generate the token, we need to create a credential. So let's start with that. We say var credential. So equal to new sign-in key. So we have sign-in credential. Then with this, we need to specify security key. Now a security key, we can get it from new symmetrical security key. And now within this key, what do we need to provide? Let's specify our encoding.etf8 since that is the way that we are getting our byte from. So encoding.etf8.getByte, and on here let's go and grab our bytes, our key that we specified, because you want to use that in generating the token. So you pass in our key. So aside from having this key, we need to also specify the security algorithm. So let's do that. So security algorithm, and in here we need algorithm dot, we need H, you can use HMark256. Okay, so that is what we need for our credential, and this should be new. So aside from this, we go ahead and generate our token. So we're going to say var token. Now this token is equal to new JWT security. So JWT security token. Now with this token, we specified the issuer. Since we want to say we are not specifying the issuer in the registration or the configuration, we want to skip this as well. And for our audience, same now, we don't want to validate it. Now for our claims, we need to create our claims. And now with these claims, we need maybe an ID or email. Maybe a simple claim can help us achieve this. So before we tackle this, we say these are claims, and now with this claims, we want to say under that with this. So we need to create this. So this is var claims equal to new. And now with this, let's specify new claim. Now with this claim, we need, which is coming from system.security.claims. Now let's have JWT registered claim names dot, let's say this is email, and now let's provide this email. This is coming from identity user dot email. Okay, this is what we need. At least we have one here, so that's okay. Now let's grab this claim as we set it here. The next thing that we need to do is to specify an expiry. We did not set expiry in the beginning, so this also will be null. And we need the last one, that's the most important one, that's a sign-in credential, and we specify the credential that we created. Okay, so we have this. Now let's go ahead and return new JWT token. Now this time we're going for the handler, and within the handler we have a method to write the token and convert it into string and return that. Okay, so we have our token created. This method is going to generate the token for us. So that's what we're returning in here. So as soon as you log in, you're going to have your token and now your message successfully logged in. Before we tackle the password resets, let's perform migration and now test this and see whether this is working then we move on to the password reset. Let's rebuild the project again to make sure everything is intact. Great. So we make sure you pull your package manager console, and in here let's add migration. Let's update it. Yeah, so this is done. Now let's go ahead and run this. So we have our endpoints ready. Now let's go and register. We specify an email. So let's say this is email@email.com. Password is email, right, at 1 2 3 4 5. Let's click on execute to make sure we register an account. And now when we check the response, it is saying that true, meaning account has been created successfully. Let's go ahead and log in. So we're going to use the same email, the same password. Click on execute, and in case this works, we must have our token. And now we have our token in here. Alright, so this is working. Let's close this. Let's go and tackle the password reset. So you know that before you go in for password reset, you must request for password reset, isn't it? So let's have a simple endpoint whereby user can request an reset from. I mean, it could be a button clicked or whatever in a client. Okay, so there's going to be a request password reset. So let's handle that. From here, we have an HTTP GET, and within this we're going to say request password reset. And within this, what do we need here? It is only the email of the user, nothing much. So we have our public async task, which takes in action results, and in here we say that request password reset. We specify our parameter as email. Now when we have this, let's get user. So await, we have a method created that is get user. We pass in the email. We are not validating this, we assume it exists. Now let's have a reset token. Now reset token is going to be await. We have our user manager dot create reset password token. Do we have that? So this time around, not create, rather should be generate. So we have reset password. The password reset token is in which takes in the user. We have the user at hand, so no worry, just passing the user. After we got this, we want to, this email is too long. It has some forward slash and backward slash, which is not nice to pass through the address. So we want to encode that and remove all these special characters from it. When we receive it, we're going to add these characters to it again to make it valid. So for now, let's invalidate it. We make it invalid. Then after the user clicks and come to our endpoint, we make it valid again. Okay, so we can do that using this web encoders to handle that. Now this API has an endpoint known as base64 encode. We're going to use that. So let's have our, let's say this is string, and I'm going to say this is valid token. Now this valid token is equal to, this is web encoders dot, we want to generate 64 URL encode, right? Now in here, let's use encoding, not encoder. So encoding dot you can be using ASCII or UTF-8.getByte. Now with this byte, what you want to specify is a reset token. So you pass in a reset token. This should be reset, not rest. So we have a reset token. Now the next thing that we need to do here is we're going to send this. So let's return OK. And now with this OK, I'm going to say that send email. Then with this email, we're going to pass in this user.email, and also you pass in this token, so valid token. That is a method that we need to or yet to be generated. So control period to generate this method. We have this specified down here. Now let's go and send this email. In order for us to send this email, there are quite a few steps that we should follow. We need to first create a reset link. So let's build that. And this could be in the form of string. Now that is reset link. Now this reset link is going to be equal to, let's go to our properties folder and let's see if we can have access to the address of this endpoint, because you want to make a call straight to our local host since we are building this locally. In a development or in a production level, you know what you do, right? You put in your address and you're good to go. Now here, since our endpoint is not having a prefix of API, we can skip that and we go straight to account as a controller. Then in here you're going to have reset password, whereby you're going to provide only token. Now the token here is what you're going to be providing as a valid token. So let's provide a valid token. We have our reset link created successfully. Now we need to build string, and this is going to be in an HTML format. So this is going to be a string builder. Then we're going to have an SB equal to new. And in order for us to do this, I created this simple HTML. So I have this at hand. So let me just go and grab that. You can pause the video and type that if you want to do it, or you can just create any simple HTML form template and wow, you make it happen. Within this, we are applying some CSS style in it. As you can see, we have a style, and since you're going to be generated using the HTML, it means it is going to work. Yes. Okay. So now that we have this, we need to convert this to string, right? So let's say this our message. Now this message is equal to this sb.toString to get it in the string format. Now let's create our email. Let's make sure we have this email here. So let me underscore this. So we're saying this email is equal to my email. If you check my previous video, we have same. So that is my message, which is coming from my kit. Then we need to have an email dot from. Now with this from, we need to specify, we need to add. Now we add in this mailbox. So mailbox address dot pass, and in here we specifying our from address. Now we close this, and we also need to add, because we have to specify from and to. So we have our, this is to. So whom are you sending to? We specify that. Let's specify an title. So dot subject. Then this is what password resets. The next thing that we need to do here is to specify the body. So that is where we need to we need to specify the body as HTML. So we say this body. Now we specify, or we pass in equal to new text part. Now this text part, we can specify the text format. and here we want to use HTML, and after we're done with that, we can specify the text itself equal to the message that we created. Okay, and let's be using var smtp equal to new smtp client, which should come from MailKit, and within this you want to say smtp client dot connect. Now with this connect, we need to specify the host s, that is smtp dot ethereal. Since you're going to be using the fake one, I like using this because it is simple, but there are a lot of fake email that we can use to test. So don't stick to this only, you can explore. 587, then let's have this having a secure socket.tls. So that is what we're going to use for the socket. Now the next thing that we need to do here is we need to authenticate ourselves. The one sending the message, please you authenticate yourself. So we say smtp. Now this smtp dot authenticate, and now this authenticate, we need to specify the username, talking about the email and the password. So we're going to be doing that, and aside from that, we need to smtp dot send. So what are you sending? Passing the email. After that, smtp dot disconnect. Now with the disconnect, you pass in through when everything is successfully sent. We want to disconnect that, and here this is returning string, so maybe let's specify this as string. Then we can go and return some message to the user. So we say this return, then we're going to say that kindly check your mail, maybe your email, for password reset link. Nice one. Then we are done. So we need to create account in here with the Ethereal and just specify our from and on to. We're going to send a message to ourselves. Now once you're done, after the user clicked on this, what do you want to do? We want to go in and reset the password. But before I reset the password, we need to create a link. So we're going to be as a receiver. So HTTP get. Now the route here, it is reset password. It takes in a parameter of token. And let's have our public. There shouldn't be any async because I'm not going to process any database operation. And are we saying that this is reset password? We take in the token in form of string. Then in here we're going to get this original token. So we're going to say this string underscore token. This is equal to web encode this. Or maybe we can, before we use web encoders, we can use an encoding. So encoding.utf8.getString, and now with this getString, I'm going to be using web encoders.utf8. So we can see base default decode, and now what are we going to decode? We specify the token that we have at hand, and now we can decode this nicely. So this should be decode, not encode. Okay, then we are set. Now let's create a property here to handle that. This should be saved to database if you want to do that. So this is the string, and let's make this as static so we cannot get its value reset. And now we're saying that here we say this is token, and when we get this, we're going to set this token here, and after that we want to return. Okay, then we say reset password now. So let's create an endpoint so user can reset password. Let's initialize this to empty. Now we come down here and going to reset the password. Now this is HTTP get. This could be post as well, but we can also make it get. So this is reset password, but this password takes in the email of the user, and also we need a new password because you've cached or you've stored the password already, the token already. So we need not to receive any token from the user. All that we need is the user's email and the user's new password. So let's define this method, and this is going to be public async task of action results. So reset password. Now this takes in email and also new password. So within this, we want to get the user and also specify the new password. So we can say that here, let's have results, which will be equal to, we're going to be having a wait, that is user manager dot then reset password. So with this reset password, we need to specify the user. So we're going to be calling get user method, that is get user method. Now this get user takes in email, so let's specify that email, and then we specify the new password. But before that, we need to provide a token. So let's make sure we have the token at hand. And at the end, we want to return this okay with the results. So in case it was able to reset the password, we're going to see that. In case it couldn't, we will also see it. The next thing that we're going to do here is we need to specify this. So let's go to ethereal.email, then try to get a fake account. So in here, ethereal.email, then let's create an ethereal account. So we have a default account created, very simple way. Now let's go to our project. So this is from, let's paste this and also to the same thing. Let's grab the password and now let's come here and now paste it. So let's grab that for the authentication, and that is all. So we're going to run application, and after that we make sure our Ethereum is open. If you close it, that is all. You need to open it again, get another account. So once it stays active, you have your account also being active. So make sure you don't close it. So let's see. So we have the account opening. Now first of all, we created an account here. So let's try if we can log in. So here, let's try this to log into the old one. That is email at email. We have an email at 1234. So if I try to log in, we're going to have access to the login, our token. Alright, so when we check it up, we see we have our token down here. Now we're going to log in, we're going to create a request password reset. So let's click on this. Do not forget the email. We can grab the email here. So that is our request password reset. We need to provide our email address. And now let's click on execute. So let's wait and see the response. After we receive the message, then we can go to our mail and check it up. So check your mail. Oh yeah, we have a password reset. You can see that. So click on it, and we have a simple, beautiful design here with us in that set your password. Okay. Now when we click on this, let's see what will happen. So click on this, and you can see reset password now. So we've consumed it, and now let's go back and see. So there's a reset password. We have this already set or called. Now with this reset password, that is what was questioned as you click on this. Now we're going to reset our password here. So this is our there is the email, and now we have the password and a new password. So our password was email at 123.345. What we check here is okay, so 12345, and here we're going to change it slightly. We're going to be using at, so at email at 12345. Now this requires, I think we should have, I think when we check here, reset password, it is taking in email and a new password. So instead of specifying this new password, we specify this, but it's still going to work. So it's still going to work here. Let's see. So if I click on, or maybe, okay, so maybe we can, let's reload this. Never mind, let's reload this again, because you want to make sure that you are doing exactly what you want, okay? Although it's going to work still, but yet, let's do that. So this is ready again. Now we don't have any current mail, right? So let's do it. So let's go to, when we log in using the same credential, it's going to work. Do you want us to try that? Okay. Log in, there's an email, the same password, and if I click on login, this should work. I should be able to retrieve my token. Yes, I have it. So let's go and request password. Now specify the email. Email as email, make a request. And in here, after we receive the message, we're going to refresh this. So kindly check your mail. Let's go and check it up. We have it. Click on this. And now we have set your password. So click on this now. Go ahead and I'll make some changes. Now we come to our reset password. We provide our mail. And also let's provide a new password. So using, let's say, admin at 12345. That is our new password. Click on execute. And now let's see if it is successfully created. Yeah, so you can see from here, it is what? Reset. So our password has been reset. Now when you try to log in, let's try to log in with the old password and check it out. So from here, there's an old password. Click on execute. Now let's wait and see. We have 400. That is a bad request. Now let's try the new password. So that is admin at 12345. Execute this and we have it. So you can see we've seen a simple way to reset password. Imagine this. You have just launched an amazing web application and suddenly you notice a suspicious pattern. A malicious actor is trying to hack into user accounts by repeatedly guessing password. With no safeguard in place, this attacker has unlimited attempt to eventually find the correct password and compromise your user's sensitive data. What is missing here? It is user lockout. So in today's video, we are diving deep into user lockout with ASP.NET Core Identity in .NET 8 Web API. It is a very crucial security feature that protects your application from brute force attack. Here is how it works. After a user fails to log in a certain number of times, in this case 3 attempts, they will be locked out for 5 minutes, preventing further trials. Why is this important? Think about the scenario we just discussed. Brute force attacks where hackers repeatedly guess password are one of the simplest but most common threats online. Without a lockout mechanism, attackers have endless opportunities to crack your user's password. By implementing lockout, you slow them down, giving your users a layer of protection and a peace of mind they deserve. So in this simple video, I'll walk you through how to implement user lockout in your .NET 8 Web API using Identity. We will also set up so that after 3 failed attempts, the user gets locked out for 5 minutes. Let's jump into the code and add this simple but powerful security feature that every application should have. I have already made 2 videos prior to this, and that is email confirmation and password reset. If you haven't watched these videos, they are amazing, so you can check them in this video description. You're going to find them in there. For the sake of our newbies who are just watching this video and haven't watched the previous one, I want to start everything afresh so they can see from start to finish. But while you have a knowledge in that, if you've watched my previous video, it is the same thing that we're going to do, just that when we're going to implement the user lockout feature in addition. So you can change the timestamp and click on it to skip to where necessary. Let's get go. So make sure you have your Visual Studio 2022 or higher launched. Create a new project. So create a new project, give it a name. It should be Web API. So this is demo user lockout with identity. That is my project name. Choose location, click on next, then click on next to create this project. Finally, create it. Once our project is created, we need 4 packages to handle this. That is JWT Bearer, Entity Framework Core, Identity.ui, SQLite, and Tools. You can decide to go in for an SQL Server. Since this is a simple application, that is the reason why I am using an SQLite. So you can also use this for trial purpose. Alright, so let's go and install them. You can right click on dependencies and go to manage NuGet packages and type in the name to get them installed. Or I have the packages references, so I need not to install them again. I can go ahead and I'll restore them. I'm going to do mine, you should do yours. I'm going to right click on this project, then go to unload. Then once I have the settings here, I can go in there and I'll pass in my packages. So what are these packages I mentioned? I'll just grab them. I have them here, so I'll just grab them and paste them as you can see from here. So we need to install ASP.NET-Core-Authentication.JWT Bearer for our JWT authentication. Then we need Identity.Entity Framework Core for our identity manager, and also for our Identity.ui, so we can have access to specifying the lockout and etc. Then we have an SQLite for database and our tools for migration. So I believe you know this. If you don't know, now you know. Alright, so save this and let's restore these packages. So right click on the same project, go to restore project with dependencies, and it's going to get them installed or restored successfully. Great. The next thing that we're going to do here is we need to create a DB context. That is how we're going to implement our identity DB context, which is coming from the entity framework core. So right click on the project in here. Now let's click on folder and let's give it a name. I'm going to say data, and here I'm going to create a class. I can name it as app DB context or whatever DB context. You can give it any name at all that you want. So app DB context. Now this app DB context inherits from a default class that is known as identity DB context. So this takes in identity user. So with this, we need to use EF call to get this namespace added. Yeah, so use entity framework call. Now let's create constructor and pass in an option to this. So control period gives you an option. Let's go in for that. And from this option, let's specify our DB set that we have just created. Once this is done, we go to our program.cs file and register our database connection as well as our JWT settings and our identity settings. So let's do that. Go to program.cs file and let's do this magic. So in order to handle the database, we're going to say builder.services.add DB context, app DB context, that is a name, and this needs an option. So this option .use SQL license, that is what we need. And now here I can specify my database trait. So data source is equal to auth.db.db. Terminate this. So we are done with our connection. The next thing to do here is our authentication. So let's handle it with builder.services.add authentication. Now this authentication, we need to also specify an option to that. And now this options dot, let's have the scheme specified. So we're going to say default scheme. So we have a default authentication scheme. This equal to, we have JWT bearer default.authentication scheme. Let's make a copy of this 3 times. We can terminate each. And now when we come here, this we need default scheme. So default scheme, and the last one is challenge scheme. So default challenge scheme. Now that we are done with this, let's go and add JWT bearer itself, which also takes in an options. Now with this options, we're going to save token. Let's set this to true. We're not going to validate audience and validate user because you're not consuming this in any client. So you want to skip that. That's for development stage. Now for production, this is very crucial, right? We are not also going to implement any refresh token, so we're going to also disable that. But while you can go ahead and implement that. If you want to get them implemented, I have several videos concerning or talking about how to implement refresh token. You can take this playlist and it got a lot for you. Okay, so we have this save token to true. Then the next thing is we have our token validation parameter is equal to new. Then let's pass in as a new token validation parameters. And in here we need to, let's say, validate audience, set this to false. As I told you, we are not. Then validate issuer, set this to false, we are not. Then validate issuer signing key, for that one we're going to set to true. Then we need to set required expiration time. Let's set this to false. Then validate lifetime. Let's set this to false. Now let's specify the issuer signing key. Since we have specified, we've set it to true. Let's specify the signing key. And now this signing key is equal to new symmetrical security key. Let's pass in encoding. This time around we're going to be using an UTF-8. So encoding, which coming from system.test. So make sure you include that namespace .utf8.getByte. Now you can see you can use the ASCII, you can use getByte. No, that's the UTF-8. This you want to use the UTF-8. You can use ASCII or UTF-8. Okay, so when you use the UTF-8 to encrypt or get the token here, when creating the token, when you use the UTF-8 for your settings here, when you're creating the token for the user, you must use the same thing, else it cannot validate it. So take note. Now with this, we need a random string which is very which should be secured, a private one, but this is public to everybody. So this is mine. Then we get our for our signing key. Great. So now that we have this, what is the next thing that we're going to do? Let's go ahead and register our identity manager, identity settings. So we're going to say this builder.services again .add default identity, which takes in the identity user model, and aside from that, it also takes in an option. So let's specify this options. And now here we're saying that this option we have lockout. Then with this lockout, we need to set, there are some few properties that we can do. The first one is let's set it active to all users. So allow for new users, set this to true. It means anybody who tries to create an account, this setting is going to take effect from you. So we need to make this happen. Aside from that, we need a default lockout timer span when you are locked out completely. How many seconds, how many minutes, how many hours, how many days do you want to last before we give you another chance? So let's see, we have an options.lockout. I think this should be a terminator. Yes. So options.lockout. Then here we're going to talk about default lockout times out span. Now we're going to say this is time span dot, well, from minute. We said that we're going to make it as 5 minutes. So let's have a 5 minutes here. Now the next thing is we have an options.lockout, and the next thing is maximum failed. So how many attempts do you want to implement here? We said in our introduction that we're going to allow 3 attempts. So let's make this happen. After we are done, we're going to say .add entity framework store, pass in your DB context. So app DB context, which holds your DB set. Then let's go in and save this, terminate the last end, and that is all. We are done with our settings. Control K D, freeze it well, and now save. We can go ahead and rebuild this project. Once this is built, let's go to our controller and go ahead and implement it. We are not creating, as I did in the previous videos, we are not creating any service or any repo for that. We're doing everything in the controller to make it simple for everybody, whether you're a newbie or you have a knowledge in that. This is going to be simple for everybody. So if you want to create a service for this, you can create your interface and implementation in a separate class and interface. You connect them, you register them by adding a scope or singleton, then you can inject it in your controller and now work with this. It also same as what you're going to be doing. But well, for demo purpose, let's go and do everything in the controller. So let's remove the default ones that we have here. We're going to rename the controller. You can also create new controller and use that, but when I have one here, I don't need to create new one since I have already created. Let's go and rename this controller, and that is account controller. So here we're going to have 2 endpoints. The first one is an HTTP post, which is going to be for registration. So register. Now for register, we need a user email and we need password. I believe you're saying that, whoa, confirm password. When you consume it in client, that is where you need your confirm password. But here we need email and password to handle that. This should be a public async task, and now let's use an iAction result, so we did not to specify any return type. Then let's say this is register and pass in our email as parameters, email, and our password as well. So here you open it, and now in the body, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to say that we need to inject our user manager first. I nearly forgot that. Have you done yours? So let's say this is user manager, pass in identity user. Then let's say this is user manager. Now let's go ahead and then create this. So you're going to say that this is results, or well, we can return just straight. Okay, now with this, okay, whether it's successful or not, you want to return the response. That is what you want to do. Okay, so here we can say okay, then await. We have user manager dot create async. Now specify in here as new identity user, because that is what you want to create for. And let's specify username as the email coming in. We need password as the password coming in. Then we need email as the email coming in. Now this is what we need. We can actually go a step further and add a lot in here, but let's maintain this 3. After that, you need to specify the user password. So that is a password here. Then let's close this. So that is what we are returning, and this is going to get the account created. If it does, it's going to give you the response. If it couldn't, you'll also see the response. So we are done with that creating of an account. Now let's go and log in. So for login, it's going to be another HTTP post. Now with this HTTP post, let's see this one. We need to specify the route. That is also login, which takes in same email and now same password. And this should be public async task. Let's maintain the iAction result type, and let's say this is login, which takes in your email as first parameter and your password as second parameter. Now the next thing that we need to do here is we're going to check. So let's get the email. Let's check account from the user. Let's say, do we have this user registered already? In case we have, then we can proceed and generate a token. But in case it is we don't have this user, then you know what's going to happen, isn't it? But before we check this user, before we implement this user, we want to check if this user is not locked out. Because if you are locked out, we don't want to be calling our user manager before we getting user and password before we go ahead and verify. We want to verify for the first start. That is the first step that you should go through. We check if you are not locked out. You know, we are locking user out for 5 minutes. So within that 5 minutes, if you want to make another request, we want to check for the first time if you are not locked out. If you are, then we don't need to proceed. We can return a message straight to you, unauthorized or whatever response that you want to do. You go ahead and do that. So it's necessary to check that. Okay. So this is what you're going to be doing. We're going to say that here if. So if, then we can go ahead and now say await this user manager dot. We can have a lockout async. Then we pass in this user. So this is going to be an await. Let's have a private method to handle user retrieval. So because we're going to be using that method frequently, so I think we can do that. It's a task which returns an identity user. Let's make this as null, and let's say this get user, which takes in email, and now here we want to return await, which is user manager dot find user by email, and I'll specify the email that we have. Okay, so now that we have this, we can go ahead and call this. So get user, and I'll pass in this email. So here we are checking if this user is not locked out. In case this user is locked out already, then we want to return unauthorized. So you don't have access to this straight. You don't want to proceed. So that's what we are doing here. This needs one closing. Okay. So but this, if this user is not locked out, maybe this is the first time with this user logging in, then we're gonna skip this, get the user, and now check the user password. Okay, so let's see if this user password is okay. We want to verify the password and see, because here we're going to find the user, but in case we have it, well, in case we don't, then there's no need for us to check the password. So this method will handle that. So we're going to say that if, then we can check if this is false. Then we're going to say that await user manager, this user manager dot check password async. So we need to specify this user, and now we can call this await get user. So get user passing the same email. You can create a variable to store this user, and I'll be calling it here and there. But well, you can also pass it on through this method like that. Then aside from passing this user, what else again do we need? We need the current password. So this is the password. We have it in here. So if this is false, then we want to, meaning we need to start counting the user lockout. Remember that we said we are giving 3 attempts to the user. So we need to start counting them. How do we do it? We need to first increase the lockout count. And we can do that by using asset field API from this user manager. So let's have that. And now within here, we can say that if this is this works, if you're able to count it, if you're able to move +1, that's why we want to perform this. Now we are saying await user. So we have an await. We have a user manager dot. Then we have access field async, passing this await get user, and I'll pass in the email. So this is going to increase this user, okay, the failed attempt. So with this is going to return identity result. So in that we can check for if it is success. So in order for us to check that, we need to have another closing like this. So we can check for success. Then, so if this is succeeded, let's see if we can get it from here. So in order for us to not to make things complex, we can cut this out from here. Then we can make it as a variable. So let's say this is increase count. So increase count is equal to, we have an await user manager dot access field. Then we get this user, which will increase the count. Now we're going to check if this is true. So if this is true, what do you want to do? Then we need to proceed, and we want to get the retry or the remaining try attempt. And I'll tell this user, you have 1 remaining, you have 2 remaining, you have 3 remaining, right? That's what you want to do. So in that, we have another API to get this for us. Let's see how we can deal with that. So we're going to say that this is going to return remaining attempt. So I'm going to say this is remain attempt. And now this equal to, we have an await, we have a user manager. Then we can have get remain attempt. We have this endpoint at our disposal, so we can use that. So user manager dot get access field count. So here we can pass in this user. So await get user. Then let's pass in the email. So we can get this count here. Now after we receive the count, what can we do? We want to return. So return remain attempt. If it is equal to 0, then we want to return an authorized. And I'll tell the user that no retry attempt remaining. So you can actually put in a custom message, but well, for the sake of our demo, let's put in something like that. So no retry attempt remaining. Else, what do you want to do? You want to return the same unauthorized. Then this, let's have our string interpolation here, and now you're going to say the total attempt that we specified was 3, right? So this is going to give us the remaining attempt. So we're going to say 3 minus this remaining attempt, and I'll tell the user that, hey, you have this remaining login attempt. So we have this, and we can return this nicely. But in case this is not successful, that is when increasing the count, then it means something happened, and in this case you want to return no content. Although you are trying to log in, but you're going to get no content from the server because something happened. You can customize this and return internal server error and whatever. You can actually add more. All right, so let's see. Now here we're going to check, that is when the password password is not does not sync with the user email. That is why we are handling this. Then the next thing that we're going to do here is, let me close this before we run into problems. Okay, so we get our, this is increase count. So increase count. So increase count dot succeeded. That is what we need. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do here is this should be, that is when password check is, this is when this is false. That is why we are doing this. But in case it is true, what can we do? It might be that, or it could be that the user had 3 attempts. The user exhausted 2 of the 3 attempts. So as I speak, the user has now gotten or checked the password. He now has the correct password. So the 3rd attempt, the user was able to log in. In our database, we have lockout attempt 2 for the user. So the next time that the user logs in, as soon as the person tries the first one and he couldn't, it's going to get this person locked out. And we don't want this to happen. As soon as you want to access it, we want to make sure that you have 3 attempts. So it means as soon as the user logs in successfully, we need to reset the lockout attempt from 3 to 0. Let's do that. So from this here, let's reset it. So we're going to say, so reset attempt. Then with this, we're going to be using await user manager. User manager. Now with this user manager, there's also an API known as reset access field count. Okay, passing this await get user, then passing the email. Now this is going to clear it. Whether it is 1, 2, it's going to set it to 0. After that, we can check if this is successful. So we can say that if this reset count or reset attempt dot succeeded, then we want to maybe return okay with our new unstructured return type. And here we're going to specify new, and then here let's make sure we have our login successfully. And also we want to have generate a token, so return this method. This method is going to return string, so we can pass it on straight ahead like that. So generate token, and now pass in this user. So do you have this user? Then we can just have an await get user, and now pass in this email. Okay, else what can we do? We want to also return, that is if it couldn't, return no content as well. No content. So let's go and generate this method. Now this method is going to come out with the token. So let's generate it, which takes in an identity user, and I return a string type. So let's save this. Now in here, we need to specify, we need to get the key or create our key, which is our byte. And we can get this key from our special private string that we use. In this case, in this tutorial, it's not private anymore because you can see that, right? By normal sense, it should be a private one. That should be, you should keep it secret. So let's go ahead and handle that. So we first have to get our credential, and I'm going to say this is our credential. So this credentials, we're saying this equal to new sign in credential. And on this sign in credential, we need a security key, and also we need our security algorithm. So security algorithm dot, we can use the HMAC 256. And now for our key, let's go ahead and implement our key from let's use new symmetric security key. So new symmetric security key, and now with this key we need to use encoding, which is coming from system.test. We use UTF-8, so we need to repeat same dot, then you want to get byte. Now with this byte, let's go and grab our token. So this is our strength, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so that is what we have for our key. Now the next thing that we're going to do here is we need to create our claims. So let's have our claims set. Now this claims equal to new. So maybe if you want to add more, that's the reason why I'm creating it as an array. You could add more to this. But with this, I'm going to have only one claim. And now with this claim coming from system dot, let's say it's coming from the system.security.claims. And now with these claims, we need to specify JWT registered claims name. So JWT registered. Are we getting that? We are not getting that. JWT registered claims names. Unless we are done. Claims names, which is coming from, or which should come from, let's say there's using system.identity models or token.jwt. So dot, and now here we want to prefer only this email. Okay, now with this email we have this identity.email. So this is what we need for our claim. You can add more to this, but well, let's maintain only one. Then we can go ahead and return our token. So new JWT security token handler. There's a method which takes in an endpoint of write token. Now with this write token, we need to now specify our token. So in here we're going to say new JWT security token, and now with this it takes in some parameters. The first parameter here is an issuer. You know, with the issuer we did not specify that, so we let's set this to null. We go for an audience. We did not also specify audience, so we set this to null. We go for our claims, and you know that here our claims, we made our claims specified, so we have it in there. Then the next one that we're going to talk about here is expite. Now for an expite, we did not set an expiry date, so we want to return that. And our last one, we have our sign-in credentials, and then here we have our credentials created. Okay, so credentials, we have it already, and now this is going to return this token to the user. All right, so everything is set and done. Let's save this, let's rebuild this project, and let's run and check it out. So you can see we have one succeeded. Now let's go ahead and run this project. But before you run it, I think we forgot to migrate this. Have you done yours? Okay, so if you haven't, then good job. You can go ahead and run it and everything's going to work. Let me do mine, and then we do it together. You can even wait for me so that when I'm done, then both of us will run it and check it out, isn't it? That's great. So add migration, give it a name. That is first for mine. So that is done. Let's update the database. Okay, so you can see here we have it created, and that's great. We are done. So let's go and give it a run. So I learned we are having an issue here from this, and I believe the issue was, oh, okay. So this should close and see what we did. This should move out from here, and I believe you did not do same, isn't it? So this should come here like that. It should register in a service, talking about the JWT and also the identity. It should be in a separate service, and I think this solves the problem. And well, my endpoint is ready. What of yours? Is it ready? Now let's go and create an account. So we're going to register, and this is going to be an admin at admin.com. Password is admin at 123. Now let's see. So we execute this to create an account. We're going to have success. By all means, we must have that. So the response or the result is ready. Let's go and check it out. Oh yeah, so succeeded is true. Now we have this account created. Let's go and log in and check it out. So from this login, we are not going to log in for the first time. Let's say we have forgotten a password. So instead of 123, let's add 428. Now this is a separate or different password altogether. Now when you run this, let's check it out. So you can see that's 401 unauthorized. We have 2 remaining attempts. Now let's try another one. Hey, I forgot my password. Now we have 1 remaining attempt. Now if I provide the correct password and I log in again, now it's going to get the reset. It's going to clear that and I'll reset it to 0. I have my token. Now let's go and log in again, pass in another one, wrong one. Then we see we have 2 main attempts. So this is working perfectly. Now let's try and consume all the 3. Now check it out. No retry attempt remaining. Now if I click on execute, let's see what happens. Unauthorized. Let's go and provide the correct password. Execute this. We still have the same. Although we are providing the correct password, but we are locked out. How many? How much time did we specify? That is 5 minutes. So can you wait for 5 minutes? Try again, and boom, everything's going to work. And there you have it. So by implementing user lockout, you have added a vital layer of security to your .NET 8 Web API, protecting your application and your users from brute force attacks. With just a few lines of code, as you saw, you have empowered your application to automatically lock users out after multiple or 3 failed login attempts and give them a cooldown period before they can try again. Security is never something to take lightly, and lockout is just one piece of the puzzle. Whether you are building a small app or enterprise level systems, features like this make a huge difference in keeping attackers at bay and safeguarding sensitive information. Have you ever wondered how to make your application invincible against hackers? Or how to add an extra layer of security that keeps your users' data safe from prying eyes? Well, you are in the right place. In today's video, we are unlocking the secret of two-factor authentication, known for short as 2FA. The first question is, why 2FA? In an era where cyber threats are becoming more sophisticated, relying solely on password is no longer enough. Think about this. If someone steals or guesses your password, they could gain unauthorized access to your account. But you know something? 2FA adds an extra layer of security, making it significantly harder for attackers to breach your system. Also, imagine this scenario. You have just developed a cutting-edge application with sensitive data and valuable user information. Without 2FA, a simple password compromise could put your entire application at risk. But with 2FA, even if a password is stolen, an attacker will still need a second factor, like a code sent to the user's email to access the content. You know that we are in a digital age, and securing user account isn't just the best practice to follow. Rather, it is necessary. From protecting sensitive information to ensuring safe transactions, 2FA provides that extra layer of protection. And guess what? Today, we are going to show you how exactly to integrate 2FA with identity in your .NET 8 Web API. We're going to cover the entire process, from setting up the automatic 2FA for new users, to generating and verifying code, and finally, issuing JWT tokens. So, are you ready to elevate your app security game? Well, let's dive into the world of 2FA and make your application as secured as Fort Knox. So make sure you have launched your Visual Studio 2022 or higher and create a project. Basically, this is going to be Web API project. Give it a name. That is mine, Demo 2FA with identity. Choose a location for your project. Next. And here, all that you need to do is to hit on that create button to get this project created. If you have been following this channel, I have made several videos on identity. So I've made email confirmation, I have made reset password, and how to lock out user on a password failed attempt. Now, within these 3 videos, we covered the basic process, and that is the same thing that we're going to be doing here. So if you have watched any of these 3 videos, maybe you can change the timestamp and I'll skip by installing packages, because the same package that we use, that is what we're going to be using here. So you can check the timestamp and I'll skip to where you think is necessary. But well, I am doing this to include the newbies as well. So let's go and install our packages for our database and also identity and JWT services. So I have these packages references already, so I can just go in there and reload it. That is what I've been doing. But if you don't have that, then you can go ahead and install these packages. If you're a newbie and you don't know how to install, quickly right click on dependencies, you go to add or manage NuGet packages, and in there you're going to type in these packages names here to get them installed. Quite simple. Okay, but for me, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'll just unload the project, make sure I save the default state, then I'll unload this project. So I'll just go to the item groups, and here I'll paste these packages. Well, it is the same packages, that is what we have been using. But if you don't know, we're using MailKit to send mail. We're using this bearer for JWT authentication. We're using identity with the UI for identity manager or user identity services. And also we have an SQLite and our tools for database and migration. These are the packages that we are installing. So you pause the video and try to install these packages. When you're done, tell me so we can continue on. I believe you are done by now. Great. So let's save this, and after saving, I'm going to reload project with dependencies to get these packages restored. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is let's go to program.cs file and add these services. You know, we have 3 things that we're going to add services: database, JWT identity, and identity. So let's first start with the database. So we have our builder.services, and here add DB context. But before we add a DB context, you know, we haven't created any DB context yet. So we need to create one which inherits from identity DB context, which contains a default identity table and a lot of tables in here. Okay, so we are going to create a folder, do same, or you can rename the folder if you want. I'm going to make it as data, and here we're going to create a class as DB context. So I'm going to add this app to make it as an application DB context. You can change the name and make sure it suits what you're doing. So app DB context. Now with this context, let me make this C capital. Great. And it should inherit from identity DB context. Now this is coming from Entity Framework Core. Don't worry, you have that package installed already, so it has no issue. And now let's pass in this identity user. If you want to pass in any special properties, you can extend this, then pass it on here. Today we are not covering that. Okay, I have made a video on that, how to extend this. Maybe I'll put it in the description or check the playlist, and you're going to find it in there if you want to do so. So identity user, and this should come from this package. You need to create constructor for this. So control plus dots or period, then let's say it should be control dot, and we're going for this option, and here we need to pass in identity this appdb context to this option. So appdb context. So we're done with that. Let's go to our program.cs file and include this class that we have just created. So appdb context. This needs an option, and this option helps you to specify the database connection and also the type of database that you want to use. Is it SQLite, SQL Server, PostgreSQL, MongoDB? Mention it. So we have specify an option, and I will say this option dot use SQLite.
So we're going to use an SQLite because that is what we have installed. Now, the beauty of SQLite is we do not need to specify any long connection string. Specify it as data source, and I'll pass in the name. So auth.db.db. That is the name of the database. And now this database is going to be added to this file as source code. Okay. So we have our database connection registered successfully. The next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to register our JWT settings. So let's go ahead and I'll say beta.services.add authentication. Now this needs an option. Don't forget to terminate this. Then we have an option dot. We need to add 3 schemes. We have a default authentication scheme. We have our default scheme itself and also default challenge scheme. Now all these schemes are having just a scheme property to handle that. The value for each is the JWT bearer default dot authentication scheme. So let's do that. So we have our options dot default authentication scheme is equal to, we have a JWT bearer default dot authentication scheme. So let's make duplicate of this. And here we need only the default scheme. And here, instead of having the default authentication scheme, we need default challenge scheme. So default challenge scheme. Now that we are done, we need to add a JWT bearer. This also takes in an option. So let's do that. Now this option, we're saying option.save. This is an option. See what I did. So we have options. Then we're saying that this option.save token, set this to true. We are not implementing refresh token here. So we would like to set that to false. And also we don't want to verify and issue an audience because as I speak, we are not consuming this in the client. So there's no need for us to activate that. So you're going to set issue and audience to false or to null. But in the production level, I believe you know that it's essential for you to set that. So you can have a look to check the coming in and at the producer. Okay, so we have this set. And we're going to say that this option dot, we need to set up this token validation parameters is equal to new token validation parameters. And now in here, we need to specify some properties in that. I think I did not do it well, right? It should be at the back like that. Great. And in here, the next thing that we're going to do this is to validate. So let's validate audience, set this to false, as I told you. We validate issuer to false as well. Then required expression time, set this to false. Then validate expiry. Do we have that? Lifetime, set this to false. Okay, so now that we have this, let's validate issuer sign-in key. After this, it should be true. And the next thing is we need to specify our issuer sign-in key. So this should be equal to new symmetric security key. Let's say it's over here. And now with this key, we need to specify or get our key. So maybe in the real sense, you're supposed to keep your secret key in your user secret or your app.json. But well, for the sake of this demo, I can put the security key here. It is secret, but I'm going to make it public to you so you can see it. Okay, about yours should be secret. Alright, so we have our new symmetric security key. Now, in order for us to get our key should be in a byte. So let's have our encoding, which is coming from system.test. We're going to be using an ASCII. Then in here, let's get byte. Now with this byte, let's specify any random text. But with this is my special or private key. but well, this is open to you. Okay, that is what I'm going to be using for creating and now authenticating the token. So we need this. Now once we have this, we are good to go. So we have configured our token validation parameters nicely. Let's close this. The next thing that we're going to talk about here is to add the identity service. So the next line we say builder.services.add default. Do we have it? Add default. This should come from the identity UI that we installed. So services.add default identity. Great. Now let's pass in identity user. This should also take in an option. So this option also marks to this option dot. We need to specify. Let me put this in next line. So this option dot. Now here we're going for token. So token dot authentication, and I can see from here we have authenticator token provider. That is what we're going for. Now let's set this to token options because we want this email to be sent with a token in a form of numbers. So we can just go in there, copy that and verify. Okay, but well, if you want to create it as a link, then there's another way that you can handle that. But this time around, we want to focus on having it in numbers as a code, so that I can just go in there, copy that, and I'll verify your account with it before you log in. That is what most applications do. So let's also follow the same trend. Okay, so you have token options dot. Then we have default token email provider. Let's use that for this. Then terminate that. And the next thing that we're going to do here dot add entity framework store, specify your app DB context. And that is all. Save that. Let's go to our controller, and in here we're going to create our controller. So I'm going to modify what we have already. That is what I normally do. I hit creating new one once we have one persistent already. So let's clear this because we don't need this. Even this as well, we don't need it. Now let's have our post method. Now this post takes in a route of register with 2 parameters, email as a first parameter, then we have our password as second parameter. Well, you can also get it as query strings, but I prefer using parameters than the query string. So here we're going to have our public async task, then we have our iAction result. Then let's say this is register, takes in 2 parameters specified, email and string as password. Now in here, before we can use user manager, we have to inject it here. So we say user manager, which takes in the identity user that we injected. Give it a name as user manager. Beautiful. We can grab this and we say that await user manager dot create async. Now this takes in new identity user. This is quite simple. Now this identity user takes in some properties. We have an ID, but we focus on the username, which is equal to this email, and name, well, username and email itself is equal to this email, and the password here is equal to the password coming in. Now in order for us to hash it, we need to provide this password down here. Now this is going to get the account created. We want to actually enable 2FA automatically. In a normal applications, you can be asked, because this is another second layer of security, and not all users will prefer to have this 2FA set. Okay, so it could be when consuming this in the client, you could have an option enable 2FA as a switch. As soon as the person enables it, that is where you call an endpoint. But in that case, since you're not consuming this in a client, we want to do everything in here. So whether you like it or not, as soon as you create an account, we have 2FA defaultly enabled. This is amazing, right? This is a magic of our application. So how do you do this? It's quite simple. You can get it from this user manager. So .setup, we have it here, authentication token async, or two-factor enabled async. That is the API that we need to use. This takes in the user, okay, and I'll set this to true. So let's through this, then we come back to get the user. We're going to be using this user to get for login. So I prefer we create a private method here to get that, which is an async task. Now this task returns an identity user. It could be null, so let's make sure it is. We say here it is get user, and it takes in what? Email. I believe you have remembered this. We have been creating this since starting of this videos. Now we have this half on await. It returns user manager dot find user by email. So user manager dot find user by email, and I'll pass in this email. So that is our private method which we'll be using often. So let's call this, now let's say await get user, pass in this email. So you can see within a single line we are able to register user. Now after registration, we want to return some meaningful thing to the user. Well, so what do you want to return? This should be an OK account created. But before account gets created, we need to enable this two-factor. So you can see we have it enabled here. Then return account created. This is quite simple. So we can save that. And the next thing that we're going to do here is login. So when you log in, there should be two layers of security, at least two layers, right? The first layer is the password authentication. We're going to verify the password. Does it sync with the user account, which we have already? If it does, then let's go and authenticate it using the 2FA. So we are having two layers. So let's first handle the first layer. Then we have an HTTP. This is also post. And here we have our login, which takes in same email, same password. Same email and password. Now this should be a public async task of action results. Then we say this is login, which takes in two parameters. First is email, and the last one here it is what? Password. Now in here we need to get the user, right? Because here we have a method created, so we can get user easily and now move on with it. So let's first check if this user password is successful. So we can have this if, then we're going to say that await user manager dot check password async. We need to pass in the user await, so we have get user, then pass in the email. And the next one, after doing this, we need to pass in the password itself. So here we need a password. Now this is going to return true. So if this is true, meaning password exists. But in case this is false, so in case this is false, we want to return maybe an authorized. But in case this is true, then what can we do? We want to generate a token, that is a 2FA token, and I'll send to the user's email. Okay, so we can say that we have our token at hand, which is equal to, we have an await. Since we have enabled 2FA already for this specific user, as soon as he created the account, we can go ahead and now create the token. So user manager dot, now you're gonna have generate two-factor token async. Okay, then within this we need a user, so await get user, then we specify the email, and aside from that we need another one, the token provider. So we have our token options dot default email provider. we need this. So after we have this token created, what can we do? We're going to send the message. Okay, so in order for us to send it, we're going to have to return, let's say, okay, and call the method send message or send email, not message itself. Let's make it specific. Send email. And what we need here is we need the user and also we need the token. So let's have await get user. We specify the email and also we need the token itself. So passing the token. Now we need to generate this method. The control period which takes in generate a method of send email which takes an identity user and also a string token. Good. So once you have here, we're going to build this. Now I've prepared a simple HTML format which takes in the name as an email and also the token itself. So maybe you can just create something simple for that. So I'm going to copy mine and I'll paste it here to skip wasting my time in creating this HTML tags. You know, can do mistakes easily. So I like copy and paste in that. Alright, so in here I'm going to create my HTML nice one. So yeah, I'm having a string builder, and you can see I'm having the structure of an HTML, a normal web app. It's a web app or website. So it's a page. So we have an HTML, we have a head style. I have a simple style in here, and in that I need to specify my email. So this email I can get it from identity user. So I'll say this identity user dot email. I can get my email here. Well, in case you have the username that you want to call it here, it means you need to get the username, add a property to it, and now add it and use it here. Then, so I'm having dear the email, thank you for using the application to complete the login process, do this and that and that. So let me just take this off. So verify using the following verification code. Then that is the code. So you see we are having two variables in here. Now the code itself, so instead of saying token, I think this should be the code. So I have my code here. Then after all, so best regard, then we have a security team, and you can actually customize this, okay, to get more of this. Alright, so once we have this, we need to convert this string builder to string. So by doing that, you can use an extension known as a .toString. So we're going to say this is string message is equal to, we have our email body builder. So .toString to get it. Now the next thing we're going to do here is, since we have the package as Milkit installed, let's go and call this here. So normally you have to create service to handle that, but while you're doing everything here, so we have this email is equal to new mime message. After we have this created, the next thing we're going to do here is we need to specify to and from. So whom are you sending a message to? And now the one sending. So we're going to say this email dot body, not body itself because I'm not done with the body, from the add. So from dot add, and now with let's pass this here. So we can use mailbox dot pass, and now you specify from. So from who? That is me, right? Then you're going to have to. So to who, we're going to specify that. When we are done, we're going to create a fake email account from material.email. That's what I've been using for fake email service. Then we're going to pass it here. So don't worry. Let's finish the process done. So after we have our from and now to, we go to our subject. So that's our subject. We have it here. And now this is equal to FA verification. That is the subject. Then we go to the body. So email that body, and now with this body, we're going to set it to new text part. Now this text part takes in a lot of format. So we're going to have text format.html, saying that is what we have, and we need to specify the value here. So we have it as message. The next thing that we're going to do here is we need to create an SMTP client. So we're going to say using var SMTP is equal to, this is not value tags, it is just variable. So var SMTP is equal to new SMTP. Now this is coming from MailKit, so we create that. Now we need to connect, authenticate, and now send. So let's do that. SMTP dot, let's first connect. We specify our host, and for the host it is static, so SMTP, not PT, TP dot ethereal dot email, and it has a port of 587 which runs on TLS. So let's have a secured socket option dot start TLS. So we have this set. Now the next thing that we're going to do here is we need to authenticate ourselves before we can make a send. So dot authenticate, which takes in the email and also takes in the password. We're going to fill that soon, so don't worry. After doing this, then we need to send and disconnect. So SMTP dot send will send this email. After you are done sending, kindly SMTP go in there and now disconnect it. Do that. I confirm it's true, so do it. Then we have this set. After that, we want to return some message to the user, because this method returns string, so we can get it in a controller or in a return type. So we're going to say that so thank you for, no, this is another registration, right? So we can just go ahead and write something like 2FA verification code sent to your email. So kindly check and verify. Yes. Okay. So we have this set. Now, what if in case a person goes to the email, get a code, where can this person verify it? So let's have a method to handle that. And this is HTTP post. So let's say verify. This should be verify 2FA, which takes in the email of the user and also the code itself. Let's have our public async task. Now with this task, it should return action result, which should be verify 2FA, and now it takes in the email of the user and now the code. So although it is string, it is numbered, but we're going to convert into string because that is what it needs to verify the 2FA. So once you have this, let's save this. So let's say the person has called this endpoint and provided the correct code. So what can we do? All that we're going to do here is await user manager dot, then we want to verify the two-factor token async. So here, since we want to generate our token, we don't need to sign in with this two-factor authentication or two-factor token, okay? Because here we want to just verify and check that if it matches with what we have. After we have a successful check-in, then we can proceed and create our token. But when consuming this or implementing this in Blazor, which is interactive server render mode, then you need to use that endpoint, not this one. Okay, so we're using this API because we're integrating it in our controller, whereby we need to generate a token afterwards. So we have a verify token factor, a two-factor token async, which takes in identity user. So we can get this identity user from await get user, and now with this, let's pass in this email. Aside from that, we need the token itself, which is string. So now we have the code. Kindly pass the code in there. And the next one that we need to do here is we need the token option. That is so let's see. I think I skipped that. We have token provider, right? So we have it already created. So we say this is token option dot, and we're using the default email, right? So let's search for this email provider, and I'm passing the code. So just a line can make this work. So after that, we want to return okay. And now with this okay, we're going to generate the token. So maybe we can pass in login successfully, and here maybe you can make this as string. So let's say this is new, and at the end here let's also provide a method. Let's close this first and say generate token. So this method is going to generate a token, then we pass in the user. Okay, let's generate this token. So generate this method as token, and in here this is what we're going to be doing. We have our method to generate this token, so let's go and do that. We need to create our claims, and also we need to generate the token itself. So in order to do this, we can have our token. Now this token here is equal to, we have a new JWT security token. So this, and now here we need issuer. Since we did not specify, this should be null. We need audience, this also null. Then we have claims. So this claim that we have, you're going to say this equal to new claim. Now with this claim, let's specify JWT registered claim names dot email, and I will provide this as identity user dot email. Aside from this, we need an expires. We did not set that, so this is null. Then the next thing is we need our sign-in key, so sign-in credential, and in here we need to specify a credential. So for us to get it, we need to make it as new sign-in credential. So new sign-in credentials. Do we have it? So that is this one. So new sign-in credentials, and now this credential takes in security key and now the security algorithm. Let's first remove this. I think this should be added to the namespace, and our control period, let's include this. Okay, so here we need to specify security algorithms. So security algorithms dot, and then here we need to use HMAC256. Okay, so as you're done, now with the security key, we need to have our new symmetric security key, this one. And now with this key, we need to specify our key. So this key, we're going to make it as encoding so encoding, which is coming from system.test dot, now we use an ASCII for the first one, so dot get byte, and now with this byte we need to specify the byte. So we can go to program.cs, get our byte, then go to our controller, and here let's paste this byte. Okay, so you have our byte here pasted, and that is what we need for this. Now after we are done, the next thing I'm going to do here is we need to return new JWT security token handler, new JWT security token handler, and we can extract a method from as write token. Let's specify this token, and that is all. So this method also going to get as a token. So we are done with everything. Now we're going to, unless we need this, so let's go to pull up our browser, and let's go to ethereal.email. So in here, we click on, there's a link, ethereum.email. Click on create new Ethereum account. This is fake account. So I'm going to grab this. Let's go to our email service. So here from, it is the same. So from myself to yourself. That is what we need. I think we need to grab everything from here. Cannot be typing that once we have it. So we paste this, and now from myself to myself, and we have to authenticate. Let's go in for the password. There's a password, so let's grab that and paste in here. That is all. Let's apply. Before we do that, we need to rebuild this project. That is done. Put up your package manager console and let's add migration. Update it. And that is done. So let's go ahead and run this project. So we have our endpoint ready. So let's go and register an account. So pass an email. So admin@gmail.com. Pass in the password admin@12345. That is my password. Now let's click on create to create this account. Now it is done. So when you check, you see we have account created. Let's go and log in. So try this out. Now log in. Now you're going to check from the first layer if this account or if this address or password sync with what we have used already. If it does, then it sends the code to our email. Let's go to our email and check it out. Click on messages. And while we have it, 2FA verification, click on it, and that is what we have. So dear, thank you for using the application to complete the login process. Kindly use the following verification code. So let's grab this code, then let's go back. So let's come and now verify it. Now after successful verification, that is where our code is going to be generated. You can see that although we've logged in, but when we logged in, we could not get the token, because it is not happening there. It is happening in the verification. So we have our email. Let's specify the email here, and that is the token. So let's paste in our token and I click on execute. In case this works, we should have our token in here, and that's exactly what we have. And that wraps up for today's video. We've just covered how to implement two-factor authentication, known as a 2FA for short, with Identity in .NET 8 Web API. If you have any question or feedback, drop them in the comment below. Alright, stay secured, keep coding, and I'll see you in the next video.